Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season. Here's a few hitters that looked hit off the wire this week. The first hitter, J.J. Bleday of the Cincinnati Reds. So J.J. Bleday's bounced around over the last couple seasons with the Miami Marlins, with the Athletics, and now he landed on a one-year deal with the Reds in the offseason. And he's tearing it up, especially of late. 6 home runs on the year, 19 RBIs, a stolen base, 12 runs scored, a 345 average, and a 465 on base percentage. In the last 2 weeks, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a stolen base, a 369 average, and a 475 on base percentage. Right now, he's on a heater. He's out there in 63% of fantasy leagues. In the last few games for him, really on a tear. May 12th versus the Nats, 2 for 3, 2 RBIs. May 13th versus the Nats, 1 for 3, a run, an RBI. May 14th versus the Nats, 3 for 5, 2 homers, 6 RBIs. And May 15th in last night's game at the Guardians, 3 for 5, 2 runs, and an RBI. So he's tearing the cover off the ball, especially the last 2 weeks, is J.J. Bleday. But obviously we know he's not a guy that really has had a track record in signing a one-year cheap deal, so he's definitely breaking out so far for the Cincinnati Red team. We know he plays in a bandbox as well, where those balls really fly out as the weather's going to start warming up even more. And definitely someone to add, but like I said, I don't expect it to last all season long, but if he could give you, obviously, a boost for a few weeks, definitely worth it in my opinion. Next hitter, his teammate, Matt McClain of the Cincinnati Reds. Matt McClain, he got off to a slow start the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, but now he's really kicked it into gear, and this Red offense has really got it going. So overall, the numbers haven't been great this season, though. 5 home runs, 19 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 19 runs scored, a 223 average, and a 330 on base. Also, McClain's K rate, once again, pretty high, 40 strikeouts so far this season, but the last 2 weeks, he's on a tear, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, a stolen base, 6 runs scored, a 282 average, and a 364 on base percentage. So a few years ago, Matt McClain, he had a good season when he first came up. Then the next year was an injury-plagued year where he pretty much missed that whole season. And then last season, not a good year. Only 15 homers, 50 RBIs, 18 stolen bases, a 220 average, and 300 on base. Right now, out there in 56% of fantasy leagues in the last 2 weeks. He's really getting it going. And this Cincinnati Red team, in their last 3 ball games, they've scored 29 runs. May 12th versus the Nats, 1 for 5 in RBI. May 13th versus the Nats, 1 for 4. May 14th versus the Nationals, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. And May 15th at the Guardians, 2 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs, a stolen base. And McClain, he could steal some bases for fantasy owners. We know he's done that in the past. Even last year, had 18 stolen bases in a down year. And he still has anywhere from 15 to 20 home run power, I believe, as well. And also hitting in a bandbox in Cincinnati always helps. Where, like I said, this offense is really getting it going the last 3 games with 29 runs scored, including a 15-1 victory a couple games ago versus the Washington Nationals. So McClain, he's batting 6th or 7th in this lineup. He's getting everyday at-bats. He's finally healthy, it looks like, a little bit for this Red team. And definitely a hitter I would add this week. The next hitter, Brandon Marsh of the Philadelphia Phillies. So pretty much this Philly team, they wanted to trade Brandon Marsh and Alec Bohm in the offseason for nothing, and no one even took these 2 players. And Marsh, so far this season, having a great year. We know the one thing with him, he's always been a good defender, but he doesn't hit lefties well throughout his career. On the year, 4 home runs, 22 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 336 average, and a 363 on base percentage. In the last 2 weeks, he's hitting over 400, no homers, 5 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 404 average, and a 431 on base percentage. So this Philadelphia Philly team, they're starting to get things going ever since they fired Rob Thompson, and they're quickly moving up the standings in the NL East, even though the Braves still have a good hold on the division. May 12th at Boston, 1 for 4 run. May 13th at Boston, 0 for 3. May 14th at the Red Sox, 1 for 4. And May 15th at the Pirates, 1 for 5, a run and an RBI. So when you're in a lineup with Kyle Schwarber, who already has 20 home runs, Bryce Harper, and you're hitting anywhere from 4th to 6th in the lineup, you're going to get pitchers to hit. And that's exactly been the case with Brandon Marsh of late. So right now, while he's on a heater and playing good baseball this season, he's out there in 56% of fantasy leagues. Like I said, he's not really going to bring power, but batting average, runs scored, and stolen bases, I think Marsh definitely could bring owners this week. The next hitter, Brooks Lee of the Minnesota Twins. He was on the list last week, and he's got good versatility, qualifying in second, third, and short, and obviously an everyday player for this Twin team. On the year, 5 home runs, 24 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 260 average, and a 315 on base percentage. So last year he did pop 16 home runs. He definitely has anywhere from 18 to 22 home run power, I think, is Brooks Lee. Qualifies at second, third, short in fantasy baseball, out there in 59% of fantasy leagues. And another guy batting towards the top of the lineup, especially the last 3 games, they moved them up, was his twin team. He's batted in different parts of the lineup as well. May 12th versus Miami, 0 for 3. May 13th versus the Marlins, 0 for 4 run. May 14th versus Miami, 1 for 5. And May 15th versus the Brewers, 1 for 4. So like I said, Brooks Lee, he's been decent so far this season. I think the versatility is a good thing more than anything. Also as well, he's playing every day for Minnesota, and they need someone besides Byron Buxton, obviously, to step up and play good baseball for them. And he's exactly been that so far this season. Next hitter, AJ Ewing of the New York Mets. A lot of prospects as this list keeps going is on this list this week, where we've seen a lot of prospects the last 2 weeks get called up. And AJ Ewing, one of the latest prospects, the number 1 hitting prospect in the Mets system he was this season. Qualifies at second in outfield, and he's playing center field for the New York Mets in the first few games of his career. On the year, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a stolen base, a .250 average, and a .438 on base percentage. So AJ Ewing, he has elite speed. He stole 70 bases in the minor leagues last season. He had 17 so far before he got called up from this New York Met team, and already a lot of teams in fantasy baseball rushed to the wire and picked him up. Only out there in 61% of fantasy leagues. So like I said, second in outfield he qualifies for. He's going to play every day with this New York Met team, one of the worst teams in the league, 8 games under 500. And even versus lefties, he's been in there so far. May 12th versus Detroit, 1 for 2, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, a stolen base. May 13th versus the Tigers, 0 for 3, a run. May 14th versus the Tigers, 2 for 4, a homer and RBI. And May 15th in yesterday's game versus the Yankees, 0 for 3. So AJ Ewing's definitely given this Met team a jolt. They're 3-1 since he got called up. Like I said, he's got a lot of speed. He's going to score runs for fantasy owners and steal bases. But obviously the power I don't think is going to be there. But he's got a good presence at the plate, and he knows the strike zone. Where we saw it in the minor leagues, and so far in a small sample size, 4 games, we've seen it in the major leagues where he's been on base at a decent rate so far. So definitely someone to add. And like I said, he was a top 100 prospect coming into the season as well in Major League Baseball. Next hitter, Ezekiel Duran of the Texas Rangers. So Duran, the ultimate utility man, qualifies at everything except catcher in fantasy baseball. And on the year, 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, 17 runs scored, a .274 average, and a .345 on base percentage. So Duran, I think the numbers are going to even out, and they won't be great as the year goes on. You know, you're not going to get power from him, not a lot of RBIs. But also, he's a guy that could get on base, get your batting average, and score runs. And like I said, his versatility, second to none qualifying in everything except catcher. May 11th versus Arizona, 1 for 4. May 12th versus the D-backs, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. May 13th versus the D-backs, 1 for 4, an RBI and a run. And May 15th at Houston, 0 for 4. So like I said, Duran, I don't expect him to keep it up for the majority of the season, what he's doing right now. And even over the last couple weeks, the batting average is leveled out for him. But he's going to get an everyday opportunity until Wyatt Langford returns. And Langford, he got banged up and a setback on a rehab assignment last week. So I think Duran, his job's safe for now, is a guy that's going to start every day, and he's out there in 70% of fantasy leagues. Next hitter, Luke Raley of the Seattle Mariners. Early in the season, he got off to a nice start the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. Then he fizzled out, and now he's picked it up over the last 2 weeks again. On the year, 10 home runs, 27 RBIs, 19 runs scored, a .265 average, 336 on base. In the last 2 weeks, he really got it back together. 5 home runs, 14 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a .333 average, and a .438 on base percentage. Out there in 75% of fantasy leagues is Luke Raley. Now we know Cal Riley, he's out with the oblique strain. Who knows how long that's going to be, even though he was having a horrible season. But they need some pop in this lineup, and Raley already 10 home runs in the first 2 months of the year. May 12th at Houston, 1 for 3, a run. May 13th at the Astros, 2 for 3, a homer and RBI. May 14th at the Astros, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. And May 15th versus the Padres, 0 for 1. But he did draw a walk as well in that game. So he's batting 5th to 6th in this lineup for this Mariner team. Their power numbers haven't been great this season, and now they lost Riley probably at least for a month or more, I would think, with the oblique injury. And Luke Raley, he's going out there. He's showing pop early in the season for this Mariner team. Like I said, he's another guy. I don't think it's going to keep up for him But at times, if you need some bats or someone to boost your roster a little bit, you pick up a player for a few weeks, and then if they fizzle out, you just drop them off to the waiver wire. And also, as well, rarely does qualify your first and outfield. Next hitter, Nolan Arenado of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Arenado, first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, he looked like a guy that was finished, but he's really turned it around the last month of the year. Won the year, 6 home runs, 20 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a 279 average, 351 on base percentage. In the last month, he's been solid, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 18 runs scored, 342 average, and a 449 on base percentage. Arenado last season, it was a bad year for him. Injuries played a factor as well at times, even though he still had 401 at-bats, only hitting .237 with 12 homers, 52 RBIs. But this season, he's starting to clock back a little bit. More patience at the plate. We always knew he was a good contact guy, not striking out a lot as Nolan Arenado, and still could go out there and play a good third base. Not a Gold Glove third base every season, but still one of the better defensive third basemen in the league. And right now, he's out there in tons of fantasy leagues, and 77% is Arenado. And he's batting 4th to 6th in this lineup for the D-backs. May 11th at the Rangers, 2 for 4. May 12th at the Rangers, 0 for 3, a run. May 13th at the Rangers, 2 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. And May 15th at the Rockies last night, one of his former teams, and obviously where it was the peak of his career at Coors Field. 1 for 1 with 2 runs in that game. So this D-back team trying to get things going a little bit. Arenado, he's been a good get so far this season for this Arizona Diamondback team. And for fantasy owners, I don't think obviously he's going to bring power really, but RBIs, batting average, on base, and runs scored, he definitely could bring to fantasy owners. And someone said this week, next hitter, Henry Bolt of the Athletics. Bolt, he was a top 5 prospect coming into the season for this Athletic team, and he got called up early in the week, and so far he's off to a great start, 5 for 10 with 2 RBIs, a stolen base. So like I said, this is prospect season now. A lot of these guys, after obviously the year control, they qualify for. If wait until May, that's exactly what we've seen now around the league. Final hit I looked at, it's Carson Bench of the New York Mets. So Carson Bench, he's actually been a top prospect in this Mets system coming into the year. Made the Major League roster opening day, hit a home run his first game, and then he fizzled out the first 5-6 weeks of the season where it looked like he might actually get sent down. But now he's turned it around, and they're even playing him versus lefties every day as well as his Met team. On the year, 3 home runs, 13 RBIs, 17 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, a 230 average, and a 288 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks, a homer, 7 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 341 average, and a 400 on base percentage. So Carson Bench, he's playing well for this New York Met team. They called up A.J. Ewan as well, one of their better prospects who I mentioned early in the video. And they're going to go with a youth movement, and Carson Bench has been moved back to the leadoff spot. And ever since then, the Mets are actually 3-1 in that time. May 12th versus Detroit, 2 for 5, a run and RBI. May 13th versus the Tigers, 3 for 5, an RBI, a stolen base. May 14th versus the Tigers, 2 for 5, a run. And May 15th versus the Yankees, 0 for 4. So the Mets, they were playing guys like Austin Slater and even Andy Ibanez, who they got rid of earlier this week, over Carson Bench versus left-handed pitching. But with this Met team out of it, and anytime a prospect calls up, you don't really want him sitting on a bench. So he's been playing now consistent over the last week or two as Carson Bench, and he's paying dividends for this Met team. He's a guy in deeper leagues that can help fantasy owners, and he was a top 10 prospect in Major League Baseball before the season and making the team out of spring training. And also with the injuries on this Met team and them going nowhere this season, it looks like they're going to play the young guys, and I think Carson Bench can help fantasy owners. He's out there in 84% of fantasy leagues, and it's that time for a lot of prospects to come up and help fantasy owners, and we've seen it now over the last few weeks, especially. That's a few hitters I looked at off the wire for week 9 of the fantasy baseball season.